welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for those who have subscribed. Thank you for all of you who have interacted in the comments. Thank you for the likes. I really do appreciate it. Today I will be speaking about Dorethea Kraft, who is the first woman to be hung after the Union of South Africa in 1918. So I hope you guys enjoy this video. Again, if you haven't already, please do subscribe and do all the nice things below. Let's get into the video. Dorothea lives on a farm and lives with her daughter Polly, and she's actually a widow. They live on a farm in Trierfontein in Lichtenburg, in the Lichtenburg district, and the farm isn't doing so great. The farm is substandard, you know, even like the environment around it. The soil is not great, which will affect the produce. The workers don't respect her, you know, they don't respect her authority because she's a woman. They don't like listening to her or taking her orders. And yeah, just the surroundings around the farm are not great. So there is a man who comes to the farm called Louis Tampowski, and he is a Jewish immigrant from the United States, and he actually comes to the farm to buy some fresh produce for his general dealer business. So eventually Louis and Dorothea become friends, and Dorothea confides in Louis and tells him that she needs a man who can run this place because, you know, she needs somebody who has authority, somebody who can help improve the whole farm in general. Louis decides he wants to lease and run the farm himself, and he will do it for £25 per day. So Dorothea agrees, and they actually sign a contract. And the contract was actually drawn up by a firm in Johannesburg, by a firm of attorneys in Johannesburg, and it was just a legal and binding contract between the two of them, and they actually signed it on the 21st of May 1914. After that said and done, Louis moves into the farm, and they eventually Dorothea and Louis start dating, and they actually start living as man and wife. So fast forward, there's no improvement with the farm, nothing changes, you know, there's just no way forward, and Dorothea decides she wants to sell the property, she wants to sell the farm. And that's when she finds out that she actually has no other choice according to the contract but to sell to Louis at a very low price, like at a price that's below market value. And this obviously angers her, you know, and she's like, she didn't know this, you know, they didn't read this to her at the time she signed the contract. That's not what she signed up for. She even had her own lawyers look at the contract, and yeah, no, they told her the same story, like there's nothing you can do, you have to give it up to him at a lower price. So she's like, okay, she thinks of coming up with a plan, and she asks Louis for them to get married so that the contract can be squashed with the anti-nuptial contract. And Louis is like, nope, he's not even gonna consider a marriage, because also their relationship at the time was not even going well. So Louis wasn't even into the whole marriage idea at all. Turning down the marriage proposal was a deadly mistake for Louis, because after that Dorothea decides, okay, she is actually gonna bewitch, I guess, Louis into making him fall madly in love with her so that they can actually get married. So she goes to a local witch doctor called Jim Bird, who's also known as Whiskers, for him to give her a love potion she can use on Louis. And unfortunately the love potion didn't work, because when he tried poisoning him with it, Louis actually fell violently ill, and after that he was just like, you are trying to kill me. He accused Dorothea of trying to like kill her, and he refused to eat any of Dorothea's food after that. So that was a massive fail. So there's another dude who becomes a very prominent part of the story. His name is Hermanus Swartz, and he actually likes Polly, Dorothea's daughter. So Dorothea confides in Hermanus about the problem she has with Lewis. And Hermanus is like, oh no, there's only one option. Like there's only one direct way of getting rid of this dude, and the only way is to kill him. So they both decide that the best way was to kill Lewis. And so Jim Bird, the local witch doctor, actually agrees to help them kill Lewis for £100, right? So on the night of the 2nd of February 1918, there was a huge hailstorm outside, so it's quite loud. Dorothea, Hermanus, the witch doctor, and 3 other African workers, the workers who worked around the farm, actually gathered up in the lounge of the farmhouse and, you know, put all the final details together. And actually, Hermanus walks the witch doctor, Jim, to Lewis's bedroom, and he opens the door for him, and he actually pushes him inside. And Lewis is startled by all of this, you know. He wakes up, but before he could actually see or do anything, the witch doctor hits him continuously over the head with a knopkiri. And after that, obviously he hits him enough time to think that he's dead. But Hermanus is like standing at the door. After Jim is done, Hermanus decides that no, this person is not dead yet, and he actually takes out a pocket knife and slits him across his throat, just to make sure that he is gone. So after this, Dorothea brings a blanket to like control like the flow of the blood, and just to stop it from like, you know, going all over. And so while all of this is happening, Jim, the witch doctor, actually just has a feeling that somebody is watching them from the outside, like somebody saw them through the window, and he gets into a real panic. Like he gets into a frenzy and decides, I'm out, I'm not doing this. He decides to run away. They offer him an extra £100, and he's like, nope, and he runs away. So with the help of the men, Dorothea and the men actually bury Lewis's body outside. So there's a rough grave under the ash pit, and they bury him under there. So by daylight, there is no sign of a crime that occurred. By daylight, everything has been cleaned up. Life is back to normal. So Dorothea now has to cover up for herself, you know, because where's Lewis? Like people are gonna start wondering. So she decides to make up a story. She's like, Lewis left me, you know, he just deserted me. I don't know what to do, you know. She's a damsel in distress. So at some point, she even goes to the neighbor's house to actually stay there, because she's scared of being at the farm alone, you know, because Polly at this point also wasn't home. She was in Johannesburg. So how people knew that Lewis had been missing was almost 3 months later, and a man calls Lewis's sister to say, can you give me Lewis's new address, because I want to buy an option in Treilfontein. And Lewis's sister is like, what are you talking about? That's where Lewis lives. And so that raises suspicion for Lewis's sister, because she's like, what do you mean? You know, he should be there because that's where he lives. So anyway, that's when she reports him as a missing person to the police, and the police now must start investigating. So when they go to Dorothea's house, she says, I'm not interested in Lewis. I don't know where he is. I basically don't care, because he left me here with debt issues, you know. He had debt repayment issues, and now he just decided to run away from them. And Lewis's sister is like, there is no way that Lewis had money problems, because his financials at the time he left were in perfect condition. So what you are saying is absolutely not true. At the time that Lewis's sister actually, told Dorothea that she's lying about Lewis's disappearance and stuff, she had inquired for the police to do like a thorough search on the farm, to actually look for him, but they didn't. They only started looking on the farm like thoroughly a year later. So they did a full-scale search of him on the farm, and the head of the Transvaal CID had actually learned of the option in the clause, the contract, the clause that says Dorothea has to sell at a lower price to Lewis. He actually comes upon that clause, and actually to him it was a motive, it was a motive for Dorothea to get rid of Lewis. But without a corpse, they couldn't prove anything. They had no case really, because they had no proof that she had killed him. So in July 1920, the search for Lewis's body officially began on the farm, and 8 prisoners from the Lichtenberg prison actually did the digging in the farm, helping to look for Lewis. After a month of hard work, after a month of looking, like there was nobody, and nobody came forward, even though there was £100 reward. They just came up short. They didn't find anything. So the man who organized the search, a detective Daniels, heard of Jim Bird, the witch doctor. So on the 20th of August 1920, he went to talk to Jim, and Jim actually confesses to being there during the crime, but then says, I do not know where the body is, because I left before the body could be concealed, or like before the body could be disposed of. So I left. I really don't know. I was there during the crime, yes, but I really don't know what happened to the body. So after that, Jim joins the 8 prisoners to actually dig and look for Lewis, and he's actually put in lockup because there was nowhere else to put him. So on the 20th of September 1920, almost 2.5 years since Lewis's murder, Jim is actually the one who finds Lewis's body on the farm, like where he was dug and buried. Jim is actually the one who finds him. So although the body was badly decomposed, there were some telling things that could prove that it was Lewis. There were some gray hairs that were visible. There was a mark across his throat actually that shows that he could have potentially been cut across the throat. There was a signet ring on one of his fingers of his left arm that the neighbors actually could identify as a ring he used to wear. And one of the local cobblers could actually identify the boots that were on the corpse as Lewis's boots. So the corpse was then identified as Lewis from all the things that could be identified and that were found on the corpse. So his post-mortem showed that Lewis had suffered a fractured skull, and that the slit or the marking around his throat had actually been from a knife. Okay, so Dorothea, Hermanus, Jim, and the 3 African workers were eventually arrested, and Jim struck a deal. Surprise, surprise. Jim, the witch doctor, strikes a deal with the police, and he was gonna turn King's evidence in exchange for immunity from prosecution. So in the interim, Dorothea had actually gotten married, and she was now Dorothea van der Merwe. And her trial began on the 13th of June 1921 at the Potchefstroom Circuit Court. So for a guilty verdict, it wasn't necessary for the state to prove to the court that Dorothea had actually killed Lewis herself. But it was if they could prove that she instigated the crime, then she would be found guilty of the murder. So Jim was the star witness, but the judge perceived him as a liar, an adulterer, because he had sexual relations with Dorothea on several occasions, a witch doctor and a murderer, even though he was the star witness. So eventually the evidence was strong enough to implicate Dorethea, and she was sentenced to death together with Hermanus. The other three basically went scot-free, and Dorethea was actually hanged at the Pretoria Central Prison on Tuesday, August 16th, 1921. So that is the story, ladies and gentlemen, of Dorethea Kraft. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope it was very entertaining for me, especially Jim, the witch doctor. So yeah, thank you guys for being here. Thank you for rocking with me one more time. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Do not forget to subscribe, like, comment, share the video, and I'll see you guys next time.